Okay, I am going to get started. Thank you so much for coming. This is our second of our summer webinar series for Boot Digital, and we're going to be talking about the most important digital marketing metrics and how to track them for your business. I'm super excited to get into this because I am a big nerd and I love data so much. And so this is just a topic I love to talk about, and I really hope to make it as simple and easy for you to really start to get comfortable with your marketing data and not be scared of it. Let's get into it. Just a little bit about me. I feel like this is kind of the necessary ramble when you're like doing any sort of webinar, so we'll kind of go quickly, but I am the founder of Boop Digital. My name is Lo. I use they, them pronouns. And I have been doing marketing for over 10 years. I have my own agency. I've white labeled for other agencies. I run in-house digital departments at large, like enterprise level marketing. Lots of experience. My areas of specialty are SEO, paid ads, analytics, and web optimization. I've got a ton of stats. Usually I'm managing over 500,000 in advertising budgets annually, over 32 industries in over 17 countries. And specifically with Boop, I really like to work with creatives, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit that are making the world a more beautiful place, whether that's through their creative and artistic pursuits or whether that's through their social impact. I'm really kind of picky about choosing value aligned clients, and I am so passionate about marketing, and I just want to make sure that it's as accessible as possible, so that we are all able to scale and grow businesses that have a positive impact on the world and are using kind of the latest and greatest techniques in an ethical way. So let's get into it. Why track your marketing data? Um, this is really just kind of maybe an obvious thing to state, but if you're not tracking your marketing data, you are doing everything on a hunch. And sure, there's definitely a bit of kind of intuition and confidence that comes with running a business. But ultimately, without any sort of data informed decision making, you are just making guesses, maybe educated guesses at how to run your business. And so that's just like the basic reason why we want to start tracking our marketing data. I would say the second most important reason why we want to start tracking our data is because we want to know our return on investment. You know, there's a lot of expenses that come out as a business owner, and we should be able to point exactly to what we've spent and translate that into exactly the results that we got and how much those results cost. And are we losing money on campaigns or are we making money on campaigns? Because actually, if you can prove that a certain type of marketing is always profitable for you and you have this huge profit margin, that gives you the confidence to be able to scale and grow your business at such a higher level. And without having the actual numbers in front of you and guessing that, you're always going to be second guessing, are you doing enough? What are your priorities as a business owner? And so we really just want to make sure that you're able to sleep at night, have the confidence to know that you're doing your best and that the numbers look good and that you're going to have a good business year. So what are we covering in class today? We're going to look at how to find the most important digital marketing metrics for your business for free using Google Analytics. We're then going to set up a simple but highly effective digital marketing report to track these metrics using the free data that you can find in Google Analytics. And then I'm going to show you how to interpret that data. So how to look at those numbers and make smart data-informed marketing decisions for your business. Now, there is a large spectrum of, the data you can find, the answers that you can get. And so I'm going to be teaching a very simple, approachable, kind of structured, practical way to get started. Google Analytics is free. All of these things that I'm going to talk about are free. I've created a free digital marketing report template that you can download. So if you want to kind of get ahead and have that open while you're watching class, that's at boopdigital.com/digital report template. And you can download that Google spreadsheet for free. We will be using it later in class. And the metrics that I'm showing you are very, very simple but effective. And honestly will get you so far in business. But, like I said, there's a big spectrum. And so as someone who specializes in marketing, analytics, and data, I end up going a lot more kind of intense and in depth with my retainer clients. And so what we're covering today in class is going to be honestly all you need to get started and still pretty mind blowing, but I don't want you to be scared that this is going to be too much. I really want this to be something that you actually are doing every month and using, because it's all great to, have fancy data systems, but then not know how to use them, or it's too intimidating to actually put in the work to put in those numbers each month. So let's get into it. What you're going to need to do to complete this webinar and this tutorial is you are going to need to make sure that you sign up for your free accounts. So you're going to need a free Google Analytics account. If you want to set up custom conversion tracking, you're going to need a free Google Tag Manager account. And obviously, you're going to need a website. So this webinar is talking about online marketing, digital marketing. The tutorials I'm going to be going over in this webinar are specifically for WordPress and Squarespace. I do offer services for pretty much every single website builder, but just for ease of teaching to a large collective audience, not getting, hands-on and personal and custom, we're going to be talking about WordPress and Squarespace in this class. And then what I would also look into is what you would want to do is once you sign up for those Google Analytics accounts, you're going to want to connect them to your website, and you're going to want to set up conversion tracking for your website. And I have a full blog step-by-step tutorial on how to set up conversion tracking on bootdigital.com/blog. And I also have a similar and simple blog post for Squarespace users specifically as well. And so this is kind of some stuff that you're going to want to get done in order to start to look at your data. And I will just go over quickly how to kind of connect your Google Analytics. Again, some of this, you guys will already have in place. Some of you won't have it in place. So we'll just kind of quickly go over. If you had a Squarespace site, once you have your free Google Analytics account, you are going to find your basically identification number, your measurement ID. And so to find that, you're going to go into your Google Analytics account, you're going to go into the left-hand menu, and you're going to look up the data streams. And then you will see something called measurement ID, and there's a little copy icon. You just copy it. And now you're going to go paste that into your external API keys settings in Squarespace. So if you go into your advanced settings, you go into external API keys, there's literally like a field to put in your Google Analytics measurement ID, and that's where you'd paste it. If you have a WordPress site, the easiest way to connect your Google Analytics account is to download the free plugin Google Site Kit. And once you download that, it will the wizard will basically take you through to log into your Google Analytics account and your Search Console and your Tag Manager and just sync everything up for you. And it'll automatically put all of the code that needs to be put onto your website. So both are really approachable. I think it's just really important to iterate here that first you need to sign up for your Google Analytics account, and then optionally sign up for your free Google Tag Manager account and your Google Search Console account. But just signing up for those accounts doesn't mean that the accounts are connected to your website. So you have to then do this step of connecting the Google Analytics accounts to your website, which in the back end includes adding code to your website. But with Squarespace and WordPress, they have these solutions that make that a lot easier. The other thing that people kind of don't necessarily understand or get tripped up on is that once you've connected Google Analytics to your website, you're going to start to get a ton of data. That's just part of the default Google Analytics settings. However, custom conversion events, which we're going to get into and talk about later, are not something that is just naturally set up in Google Analytics. This is something that you would need to create, probably with the help of a developer in Google Tag Manager, and then link that to your analytics account. So that is what that blog post tutorial is all about when I said at bootdigital.com/blog, there's a whole tutorial on how to set up a custom conversion event. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. That being said, if you're not tracking your custom conversions, everything else is pretty much just like already available for you to start looking at. Your website traffic and where they come from and how old they might be and how long they're spending on the site, and like all this crazy amount of free data is available to you. So we're going to get into how to use that in our next slide. So what basic digital marketing metrics should I start tracking? I think with a lot of these types of subjects, what ends up happening is it's amazing, it's cool. You maybe like waste a ton of time just getting like excited about the data, or maybe it's the opposite effect. You just dread it so much that you avoid ever looking. I think there are some really basic things that you can learn to do that will make you feel empowered and are super easy to start. So let's figure out what they are. So I would say the three most basic web performance metrics that you want to start to really understand is going to be your website visitors, your website conversions, and then calculating a website conversion rate from that. So when I talk about website visitors, what I mean by that is the actual number of humans, the actual number of individuals that are coming to visit your website. And so if I am looking for that data in Google Analytics, that is what Google Analytics calls users. You're going to see a lot of different metric names in Google Analytics, and they all mean slightly different things. So for example, sometimes when people are looking at website traffic, they'll be like, what's the difference between users and sessions and page views? So a user is the actual individual, the actual human that has come and has visited your site. A page view is like what it sounds like. It is like when a single page has been loaded and viewed. So if you think about it, if you visit a website, you might actually view like, maybe you view like 5 or 6 pages because you're like scrolling through and, navigating throughout the site. So if you were to look at that in Google Analytics, you'd see one user for you, but you'd see like 5 or 6 page views. So you really want to make sure that when you're trying to track how many people are visiting your website, you're using the metric users. And the last one I'll just mention that people often get confused with is in Google Analytics, there's something called a session metric. And a session is kind of a arbitrary take for Google on a person has visited, and if they're like on the same website, let's say within like a 30-minute window, that's considered a session. But if they came the next day and they visited the website, that would be a new session. And so again, you might only have one user, but then they might have multiple sessions within like a day or something. So in general, we like to look at actual number of kind of humans or individuals or visitors or potential customers as the user metric in Google Analytics. The second metric we're going to look at is website conversions. And a conversion is basically just a term that is ultimately going to be defined by you, but a conversion is a desired action that a visitor takes on your site. And ideally, you want that to not just be like every good action, you want to be really choosy about what you define as a conversion. And that's going to depend on your business. So for example, let's say you are a photographer and you are trying to define what a conversion looks like for you on your website. You might choose that when someone fills out an inquiry form on your website or a contact us form, and they've completed that counts as a single conversion. Because ultimately that is the last step that someone takes on your website right before that kind of decision to purchase or buy from you. So you are ultimately trying to choose what is like the closest thing to the end of that purchasing decision on your website. For some people, like for e-commerce website, a conversion is probably going to be an actual purchase. It's when someone has finished payment and they have put in an order, and that is a conversion, that is a sale. For other types of businesses, like perhaps another kind of freelancer or like person who has a service as a business, it's probably going to be like book a call. Like maybe there's a button and they have a sales call like that takes them to a scheduling, like a consultation. So booking that consultation will probably be their conversion action. So it kind of depends on you as a business. And that's why Google doesn't necessarily just have conversions right out of the box, default in your Google Analytics, because it's so unique to every business. And ultimately, you want to get help to set up or follow the tutorial on Boop Digital to figure out this is what my conversion is, and then set up a custom Google event and mark that as like, this is my conversion. And that's going to start to really, give you so much insight into how to run your business. And the third metric that we're going to look at is the website conversion rate. So basically what a conversion rate is, if you take the number of conversions and you divide that by visitors, you're going to get a conversion rate. And you want to kind of see this as a percentage. So if you have, one conversion this month and 100 visitors, then that is going to be a 1% conversion rate. So in general, you'll start to see kind of based on the number of visitors, based on the number of conversions you have, what is like the percentage of people that actually completed that desired action on your site. So these are the three main metrics that you want to take a look at. Now, I like to keep things really simple. I like to just track this in a Google spreadsheet, and I will just have it broken down by month for each month of the business year. I'll have total website visitors, total website conversions, and then I'll have my conversion rate. In addition to having that kind of total holistic view of my website, when I have a digital marketing metrics, I also like to do this same process. Whoa. Don't mind that loud noise. My cat is escaping the bedroom, and that is the nature of live webinars. Be prepared that we might just have a cat come on screen going forward. Okay, so getting back into it, we have the kind of total website visitors, total website conversions, and then the conversion rate. But we're also going to break this down by marketing channel as well. So I like to look at by marketing channel. How many visitors did I get from this marketing channel? How many conversions did I get from this marketing channel? And what was the conversion rate for traffic from that marketing channel? So I might do that for like, my SEO or my organic traffic. I might do it for social, for paid ads, or email, whatever my marketing channels are. That's going to be really helpful because then I'm going to be able to tell pretty quickly how many people are actually coming from these marketing channels, and how many people am I getting like sales or calls from each of these marketing channels. That'll be very telling data. And then I also like to look at the same kind of three metrics by surface area. So a lot of people, they just have one service area, that's totally fine, but you might have multiple service areas. And so I just like to track that data by my service areas, because then again, very quickly, you're going to be able to tell, oh, in the city of Vancouver, where kind of that's one of my main markets, I get this amount of traffic and this amount of conversions, and this is my average conversion rate. But then in my other market in Edmonton or Calgary, I have much lower visitors and a much lower conversion rate. So like, I'm not doing as well in this market, or I just have to work a bit harder to like really get into this market. Very useful data. And then the last thing I would suggest is that you would take these three metrics and you would look at it by kind of your main service or offering or landing page. This one, again, is very dependent on your business. So let's say, for example, again, I'm a photographer and I offer wedding photography and engagement photography. Then I am going to maybe look at my wedding photography like page and just look at like what is the number of visitors to that page and the conversions on that page versus my engagement landing page. What are the visitors and conversions on that? So you'll start to see kind of the difference between two different services. So I already have created a spreadsheet that you are free to use with all of this breakdown, you can download it for free at boopdigital.com/digital-report-template. And that will give you a copy of a Google spreadsheet. And I'll kind of give you a look at what it looks like. It's, a little small because I was trying to get it into the screen here. But I basically go over at the top, I have the total web performance stats. Then I've got the stats by marketing channel. Then I've got the stats by service area and the stats by landing page. And when you see all these kind of weird, hashtag NA stuff, what happens is when you start to put your numbers in here, that's going to be a little mini line graph. It's super cute. It'll just automatically start to show you kind of the peaks and the dips of your traffic and your conversions. And you'll also notice for each row that there's a website conversion rate. Right now in this screenshot, you'll see kind of like a hashtag like div0. That's because that will also automatically populate. As soon as you put in your visitors and conversions, it'll automatically calculate and show you your conversion rate so that you don't have to calculate that. So this is a free resource for you guys to use. Again, I'd like to point out when I have kind of my monthly retainer clients, I have custom bespoke reporting to each client, and it's, a lot more in depth, and we'll talk about different options down the road. But as you can kind of probably see already, if you were to fill this out each month, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, you are going to get so much insight for your business. And there will be no guessing as to which marketing channel is working, which market is working, which service area needs a bit more work on. This is essentially the most important metrics for your business. Beyond, the only other important metric is how much money you're making and charging and losing and making sure your cash flow is good. But if you want to know what your digital marketing program looks like, this is going to show you. So how do I even find these marketing metrics in Google Analytics? It's actually pretty simple. So let's get into it. So again, I just want to emphasize, if you would like to work alongside with me and start to look at your own Google Analytics account, you can do that. You can download this spreadsheet now, and this would be the time to get your worksheet out and follow along, because I'm going to show you how to fill in these numbers. Okay, finding your website visitors and conversions. So if I go into Google Analytics and I go to my left-hand menu, I go to acquisition, traffic acquisition, then what I always want to make sure I do is select the date range I'm looking at. So for your spreadsheet, it's going to be for that month. You want to select and apply. Common mistake. Make sure you do that, because it always changes every time you refresh the page. Now I scroll down to this table, and right at the top, I can see the total amount of users. So I put that in my total website traffic. Then down below, you'll actually see it breaks down by marketing channel. So I'll put in those users, and it's only going to show the marketing channels that you're actually getting traffic from. So, if you don't send out emails, you're not going to see email. Now, if I'm looking for conversions, I'm going to look at these events. These are all random events that I've set up for Boop Digital. And when you set up an event, you can mark which event you want to be counted as an actual conversion. And so I would look at the total conversions. And again, I put total conversions in, and I would see conversions by the channel as well. So that's how you're going to find your website visitors and conversions. So just to kind of go over again, you're in your Google Analytics, you go to the report section, and you're going into acquisition, traffic acquisition, and that data is already there for you. So I just put a checklist here as well. If you want to screenshot, if you want to, you can come back to this video just that you can see. You go into that report section, you select acquisition, traffic acquisition. Make sure you select that date range. It will never remember the date range you selected. So this is the most common mistake, honestly, for anyone, where they're like, why are the numbers so weird? It's almost always because the date range has been selected or is not right. And then you're going to see top rows totals, and then you're going to see traffic breakdowns by marketing channel. I wanted to just include the little kind of, cover image of the blog where I talk about how to set up conversion tracking for your website, because it is like a full-blown tutorial. And, in order to see the conversion showing up in that table, you need to have set that up again, because it's not something that is, uh, there by default in Google Analytics. Now, we looked at kind of how to get the total website visitors and conversions, and we looked at how to do it by marketing channel. But how do we find that same data by region or service area? So this is a slightly different way that we look for this. So when I go into Google Analytics, I'm now going to look at the user attributes report, and I'm going to click demographic details. Again, go select that date range. It always moves around on you. So just make sure you select that date range you're looking at. I'm going to scroll down again to that table. And it depends on what service area. So there's country options, region options, city options. If I go to region, you're going to see states or provinces. If I go to city, you'll see city. That's like the smallest kind of breakdown that's there by default. You're going to look at that users metric to find your website visitors like we talked about. And same thing for conversions. I'm going to scroll over, and if I have my conversion tracking set up, I will see it in that column by the different locations. If I want to search for something, because there's like so many options, I might look, oh, what about Edmonton? And you're going to notice here, no one in Edmonton loves me. And so there's nothing there. Okay, what about Vancouver? And I can search and I'll see my data as well there. So that is how you're going to fill out and find those numbers for the service area. And again, I just put it in a checklist here. So we're still in the report section of Google Analytics, but now we're selecting user attributes, and then we're choosing the subcategory demographic details, and your check-in to make sure that date range is correct. And then ultimately, you're going to choose the option that makes the most sense for your business as far as your service area. And, there are obviously businesses too where they're like, my service area is worldwide. Like I'm an online e-commerce store, and that's totally fine. You don't have to look at data this way. Only look at the data and do the work if it makes sense for you. Like work smart, not hard. Don't get caught up in busy work. So let's look at how we would find that same data by landing page or offering, because that is also slightly different. So if I were to go into Google Analytics, I'm still in that report section, but now I'm going to go into engagement, and then I'm going to go to the bottom of engagement and go to the landing page option. And again, what are we going to do? We are going to look at that date range. We're going to make sure that this is the date range that we want to be examining. I am going to scroll down to that table again, and you are going to see the landing page by the URL. So maybe, this isn't a great example, but maybe I'm looking at my webinar, that page data. I can see, again, we're looking at the users metric. I can see how many users are there, and I can scroll and see conversions. Now, keep in mind, again, you have to set up conversion tracking. So if you have different types of conversions for different types of offerings, then you are going to need to set each of those up. And under the conversions row, there's a little drop down and you can choose which specific conversion event you're talking about. Again, that's why it's not a default option, because there is a bit of like bespoke, nature to choosing what conversions are meaningful for your business. And like in that example, I didn't set up conversion tracking for the webinar because sure, I would love to know people registered for this webinar, but ultimately it just wasn't like, it's not the, end all be all. It's not what I consider a conversion. Like typically we consider a conversion on our website when someone books a sales call with us. And I can just look at my webinar registration data to figure that out. So I don't need to set up a whole custom conversion event. I could if I wanted to. And so again, still in report section, here's the checklist, but now we're in engagement report, and then we choose landing page. And similarly to the region area, I could search for a URL in that search bar and it'll show up. So yeah, that would be how you would find by landing page. Okay, so let's put it all together. How to interpret this data for your business. Because we know what numbers we're supposed to collect. We've figured out how to collect them. But ultimately, then sometimes we're just staring at a spreadsheet at a bunch of numbers and we're like, now what? Like, why? Sure, I know this is important, but I don't really know what to do with this. And so I want to talk about some really helpful ways to interpret simple marketing data. This slide is like the craziest slide in this whole presentation. So please like don't just like leave now. Because it very much gives me like math, word problems, which were like I was terrible at word problems in math. Like I love math and I always got confused by word problems. But stick with me here because I really want to talk about the theory behind this sort of stuff. When you are looking at improving your business or improving like your online business, you kind of have two different approaches that you can take. The first is that you are working on your marketing channel promotion. And when you do that, so like you're working on your social posts and you're working on your blog posts and you're working on your email campaigns and you're creating video content and doing whatever. And when you do all that stuff, what you're essentially doing is trying to increase your website visitors. So if you were to look at this data, and the whole point of you looking at this data was for you to figure out how's it like, you know, what's happening like with social, like ultimately you're trying to increase the amount of people visiting your website. So with that, if you had 1% of your web traffic that converted to sale on average, then, if you have 100 visitors, you can kind of anticipate that you're going to get one sale. But if you were able to increase your website traffic to 1,000 and like your conversion rates were kind of just like always the same, that would now mean that like on average every month you're getting 10 sales. So when you're trying to grow your business, the first strategy is how do I grow my website traffic? How do I grow the number of visitors? And here's a couple of questions we can look at. How can I double down on the marketing channels that are bringing in a lot of traffic already? So if I look at, by marketing channel, I might notice month over month, there are some channels that just are giving me way more traffic. It's probably worth really making sure that you invest in a really solid program for those channels because again, get the low hanging fruit, like, work on the stuff that's lowest effort, highest impact first. And you're going to probably like have a bit of a snowballing success effect with that. The second thing I would look at is how can I improve the marketing channels that don't bring in much traffic? Or alternatively, if it just seems like after like you're constantly working on it, you're just not getting very much traffic, you might want to consider like, should I stop wasting my time on that for now if I don't have like a ton of resources and like time or money or like labor or whatever it is, like maybe I should just be like putting all of that into the channels that are really working. And I think this is like the first kind of thing you want to look at because I think without seeing the actual numbers, we might think that some marketing channels are more effective or more important than they actually are. And so you might be surprised at what is actually bringing you in traffic and conversions. And that is probably the first thing you're going to look at with your data to constantly like work on what are your marketing priorities right now. Now, the second way that you improve business, the first way, increasing the amount of website traffic. The second way is now working on how do you improve, like how do you convert more of that traffic? And so the way that you go about doing this is by making website improvements, improving your messaging, the way that you're selling things, your branding, your storytelling. It might also involve like working on your actual offer design, like your product design. Like maybe you need to kind of like relook at like your packages and like making sure that really speaks to people. And so once those visitors are on your site, how are you improving the likelihood of them actually converting? So think about this because this is where it gets really crazy. So now if you have an average of 1% of your website traffic that's converting into a sale each month and you have grown, so now you have 1,000 visitors each month, that means 10 sales. But if you were to work on improvements that made your average conversion rate 2%, there's 1% more, then now with the same amount of web traffic coming in each month, you're making 20 sales a month. So you can kind of see how there's like these two levers. You want to constantly be balancing and working on increasing your website traffic, but also improving your conversion rates and improving the amount of conversions. And these are done in kind of two very different ways. You've got your marketing channels to increase the website traffic, and then you've got your on-site, your website improvements, your branding, your messaging, your copywriting, your offer design improvements. And so when I'm looking at the data to figure out, how to improve conversion rates, I'm going to be looking at how can I make it easier to buy things on my site? Like, am I making people go through like multiple pages, or like, is there just a way to make this an easier shopping experience? How can I simplify my sales funnel and messaging? Am I like talking about a ton of stuff that nobody even knows what it means? Am I using like industry jargon, like how do I just make it super obvious and simple for them to know that this is the right kind of product for them? And how can I create irresistible offers and products? Like, maybe I have a package because this is like just what the industry does and this is what the standard is, but maybe that the standard kind of sucks, like how can I create an irresistible and really valuable offer or product that people actually really want? And so you can kind of also see how, like, to a certain extent, conversion rate optimization is what we call it for this second one. It can be a bit more subjective, and they're two very different areas of expertise. This is like what Boop Digital kind of does. Like, this is our specialty. We grow and convert website traffic, but I really just want to kind of separate out how these are two very different like strategies and approaches and things that you have to do. But when you put them together, you start to see this exponential growth in your business. So thank you for kind of holding with me on this like math or word problem situation. And now I'm going to get into a few more suggestions here. So other data trends that you can look for in your business. And these are just some really, these are some very classic ways that I like to look at data. We're looking at that spreadsheet, we filled out all the numbers. First, I would just look, are your numbers improving month over month? This is the most obvious way to look at your numbers and just be like, are things going well? Like, each month, are things growing? It might not be like super fast. It might be super fast, and that would be awesome. But like each month, you kind of ideally want to see that, like, okay, things are improving. Traffic is improving at each of these channels. Traffic's improving in each of these service areas, and conversions are improving over time. The most simple way to look at your data. Next, I would actually really suggest looking at, compared to the same time last year, is this month better? And this is super, super important for most businesses, but it's like something that you absolutely have to do and is a non-negotiable if you're in a seasonal business. So for example, in the photography industry, most wedding photographers have a crazy busy season in the summer where they're shooting all the weddings. And then in the dead of winter, it's pretty slow, all things considered. So if I came off the summer and I started looking at my fall and winter metrics and I was like, oh no, there's like a crazy dip, I must be doing something wrong. If I don't have the context of looking at, okay, well, how am I doing this January compared to January of last year? Like, hopefully the reality is that like this January of this year, I'm doing better than I was January of last year. So in seasonal or cyclical businesses, we actually want to look not just month over month, because sometimes it's not always accurate. We want to look at this month of this year versus the same month of last year. And so if you have the option to look at the data, I would suggest backfilling and having like last year's business data and then this year's. And like, as you continue this on, you're going to have a very clear like look at the growth. And that's when things become a lot easier. Like, it becomes easier to make educated guesses in your business, because now you're like, oh, well, you know what? On average, like over the last few years, I know that January is like this. I can plan around this. Like, maybe I'm going to have a slower business month, but this is the time where I'm going to like do a ton of like batch content, work, so that I can like just publish a bunch of blog posts. You can just do better business planning when you're able to look at the data that way. The next thing I would look at is, if I add up all monthly totals from this year of business, have I seen growth since last year? So ideally you want to be growing year over year. And I would say in general, you want to be seeing like a 10 to 12% growth year over year. I would say that's a very like healthy kind of normal amount of growth for any business. Obviously, if things are going drastically worse and worse each year, that's bad. You're probably going to go out of business if you don't change something. So in general, and if you stay the same, that's like okay, but it's actually not great. Like naturally a business should be growing like 10 to 12% each year. And it also depends on the maturity of your business. So like I've worked with a lot of different businesses at different points. I've worked at businesses in like their first year of business, their first 5 years, their first 10 years, their first 15 years. So I've seen a lot of data from a lot of different industries and a lot of different businesses. And in general, 10 to 12% growth year over year is like what you should be aiming for. That's just like healthy. If you're trying to be a bit more aggressive and you're more mature, like you've been in business for a long time, that's kind of like a good goal. But I might, really push for like 20% growth on like trying to grow. If you're in a startup phase, because your numbers are so low, like, if you had one visitor and then the next year you had two visitors. Well, you've technically doubled your visitors. Not that that's super meaningful. So like just in general, when you're in a startup phase, you ideally want to be seeing like a minimum of 50 to 100% growth year over year. So that's just kind of some context of some benchmarking to like think about. But in general, you want to be seeing year over year that it's always kind of improving. And that also helps average out those like months that are busier versus the months that are slower. The last thing that I would be looking at, and this is, it's a very much last but not least important situation, is return on investment. If I'm spending money on a certain marketing channel, how many conversions is that actually bringing in? If I'm spending a bunch of money on ads, I should be able to look at exactly how many conversions those ads are bringing in. And if you're especially, oh my goodness, if you're paying someone, anyone to help you with certain marketing support, they should be able to tell you, here are the results. Here are the hard facts of the matter. These are the amount of conversions that I'm bringing in. And what you can do then is you can divide the total monthly cost of that, channel or service or whatever by the total monthly conversions, and that will give you a cost per conversion. So then uh, let's say your cost per conversion ends up being like $10 for every person who books a sales call. It ends up costing you like $10 when you're doing ads. Now like, I mean, if you're selling like a $5 product, but it's costing you $10 to bring in a conversion or a lead, and you don't even know if that's going to necessarily like fully get done and be booked, you're losing money. So that's what we mean by return on investment. You want to make sure that, you're making money off every conversion, and you want to make sure you're not losing money on a certain marketing channel. So just really keep that in mind. That's probably like an additional thing that I would start looking at once I'm comfortable with my digital marketing report spreadsheet. And in general, if you have people or you are managing your ads or whatever you're spending money on, you want to see that cost per conversion number improving each month. Like the better you get at ads, the lower you should be able to get that cost per conversion each month. So these are just some additional, I think, really important things that you can start to look at when you look at the numbers. But if this is all super overwhelming for you, I really want to go back to basics. Website visitors, website conversions, and a conversion rate. And is that improving month over month? Is that improving year over year? And just knowing those numbers is going to help you sleep better at night and is going to make you have a much clearer vision about what needs to get done in your business, which marketing channels are working, which ones are not, and how good of a business year you're having, and if you need to change anything up to make it a better business year. So what have we learned so far? We've learned why you should track your marketing data. We have looked at how to set up Google Analytics on WordPress and Squarespace. We've looked at the 3 basic metrics that you should be tracking: website visitors, website conversions, website conversion rate. We have also looked at how you should be tracking those metrics in total for your whole website, by marketing channel, by service area, and by offer or landing page. And then we looked at some ways that we can interpret that data to make better business decisions. So I would look at what are the most effective marketing channels and how are we investing in them? I would look at how do we improve conversion rates via all those techniques I talked about, like website improvements, messaging improvements, branding improvements, and just measuring the impact. So if I am keeping track of this data and then I plan a big website change, I can then look, since I made that website change, are my conversion rates improving? Have I just like invested in a brand new website, but actually, my conversion rates are worse? It like looks better, but the conversion rates are worse. So checking into that. And are you growing month over month and year over year? And lastly, but so important, are you making a positive return on investment for your business expenses? Having a handle on this, set of metrics is going to just change your business life and is something that you can do with free tools that are available to you. So before you know it, you've got a digital marketing report foundation. You can download the free spreadsheet at Boop Digital if you want to use that to start filling in your numbers. And in general, if this is something that you're like, this all sounds amazing, but I don't want to do it for myself, you can hire us to obviously set this all up, set up all your Google accounts, set up that custom conversion tracking that I set up. We can even, backfill some of your numbers. With our retainer clients and just with any work that we do, we have reporting built into it because uh, I need to know. We make data informed decisions. And so thank you so much for attending this webinar. These are resources for you for attending. If you are watching a replay down the road, or if you're watching this on YouTube down the road, just a heads up that none of these resources are applicable to you. This is only applicable for the live class. But for those attending the live class, you get an exclusive 20% discount on your analytics and conversion tracking setup package. So usually that is $1,875. But for you, if you book after this live webinar, it will be $1,500. And as always, you can join our digital marketing email list. This is where I send all those like free checklists and classes and worksheets and all that kind of stuff. I am a massive, massive believer in accessibility and transparency and education for all of us to be better entrepreneurs and to find ways to be financially independent and to also grow businesses that have a beautiful impact on the world. And if you refer an outsider as a live webinar student, you can mention that you attended this. I can check, reg, and you can mention the other name. I'll give you both 50 off any sort of non-retainer service. And yeah, free resources. We've got boopdigital.com, the blog post, website conversion tracking. That is a full step-by-step tutorial that will hold your hand and take you through how to set up custom conversion tracking for your website. I will say that's probably the most intense blog post on Boop, but it's really clear. But be prepared. You're going to be doing technical things. And then free digital marketing metrics report template, the spreadsheet that we've been talking about in class is at that link. My blog always has a ton of these resources. Feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to stop the recording here.